All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and understanding. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome Andrew Perrin with the ADP to the stage to talk about how they are using communication and changing their organization. I think it will make a great conversation for everyone and kick off some great networking with Andrew and the challenges that they've gone through. So please help me in welcoming Andrew Perrin to the stage, out of his sequence and always willing to step up. So Andrew, please join us.
Thank you. Salamat pagi. Just got in there. I'm glad they changed because it's 5 to 12 and means it's almost the afternoon, which I think is Salamat Siang in Bahasa. Oh, there's me on the screen. So let's start this discussion with a bit of context. I work at the Asian Development Bank, and this is who we are. We're a regional development bank that aims to promote economic and social development in Asia and the Pacific. Our headquarters is in the Philippines. We have 45 field offices, almost 4,000 employees, and 68 member countries who are our shareholders. So we're owned by our member countries, and 48 of those are in Asia and the Pacific. And what is it that we actually do? We provide finance for development, and we provide knowledge or expertise for development. Because while many countries in Asia and the Pacific are developing, then they need finance to do that, to build infrastructure, to create education systems and programs. They also need knowledge to combat the incredible development issues that we're now facing, such as climate change. So we work with both the public and the private sector to bring in this money and then outload that money, and we're providing knowledge solutions. Last year, $40 billion in total operations, around $24 billion from ADB's own resources. But this is where I want to begin, and a journey. Jonna, it's not going to be a long journey, not like getting to Bulgaria. It's going to be a short one because we've only got a short amount of time, and I know we're running a bit behind schedule. So I do have a lot of slides to get through. But like any good journey, it begins with a question. And the question we asked ourselves in the communications department at ADB was, why do we communicate? And to answer that question, we developed a new corporate communication strategy and a new measurement and evaluation framework. But that then threw up another question. Is our communications at the Asian Development Bank organised to deliver on the comm strategy in the framework? And the answer to that question, unfortunately, was no. So, in a time of crisis like this, what did I do? What anyone would do, ring Superman. Jose de Barrera at the World Bank, the head of business intelligence. This was 3 or 4 years ago, the middle of the pandemic. The world was in crisis. Jose, cool as a cucumber, put me at total ease, which was fantastic. Anyone who knows Jose knows he's incredibly generous in the sharing of his information. The World Bank were way ahead on their M&E program, which wasn't hard because we weren't anywhere on ours. And no, I love this slide. It's got the biggest applause so far. I'm going to stay on it the whole time. So this was a key moment for us. Jose, as everyone knows, realizes he's kind of an AMEC evangelist, and I think he saw a lost soul in me and a lost soul in ADB. And the reason for that, he saw us ripe for conversion, was because of this. This is what I told him. This is where our communications was back in 2021. So we were fragmented. You can see there little pieces of data that's showing how fragmented we were. You know, we were late. Often in the work that we were doing, we were supply-driven. We're an information distributor. We didn't want to be any of these things, but that's what we were. What we wanted to be was this. Like if you're an in-house communications team, this is where you eventually want to get to. We didn't want to be fragmented. We wanted to be focused. We wanted to be focused on quality, not quantity. We wanted to be balanced in our coverage, not late. And critically, we wanted to be audience targeted, not supply driven. And we wanted to be a thought leader and not an information distributor. So that's where we were, and it really did feel like that we're at Everest Base Camp. And after that discussion with Jose, it became very clear that if we were going to make these fundamental changes and get to that promised land, get to the summit of Everest, then we needed to begin with a measurement evaluation framework, enter AMEC. And a couple of years later, we're here. So I'm skipping forward quite a bit. And anyone wants to know how we did it, please feel welcome to come up and talk to me after. But very quickly, this is how we did it. Critically, many of you will know Dr. David Rockland, who was involved in AMEC and was one of the co-authors, I believe, of the Barcelona Principles, had worked with many organisations and companies in developing integrated framework. We brought him in at the beginning. We needed that expertise right at the start. And then he also began, so he met with all of our management, was identifying the communications gaps and staff. We began to develop the framework in line with industry best practice, which was, AMEC. But critically also in line with the existing frameworks that already existed within our organisation. We then began creating, measurement and evaluation materials, and this is a huge task. And Yumi is around here somewhere, so Yumi Pontanier, that's French. Yumi's also on board of our team and played a huge role in the development of measurement indicators, really digging deep on how we were going to measure communications impact. Then we began rolling it out. So the CKRF, that stands for Communication and Knowledge Dissemination Results Framework. We began to pilot it amongst staff, and this is going to be a theme that I'm going to come back to a few times today. And that is that here is our team of measurement and evaluation experts discussing with what are essentially communication strategists or planners about how measurement and evaluation is going to work under this new framework. But what we found was a tremendous gap that we ended up having to explain them what an objective was. How to identify a really clear objective. To ask that question, who is your target audience? What action do you want them to take? So this theme, I want to come back to again and again and again. That strategy and planning must exist, coexist side by side with measurement. And it's got to be this virtuous feedback loop. Then we rolled it out to the bank. It was a great success. We all lived happily ever after and went to the Hansel and Gretel ice cream shop down the boulevard here. We didn't. That's the lie, total lie. What was amazing that happened during this process that I haven't put on here is that during this time, we got a new head of communications. Can't underestimate how important management is when you're trying to undertake reform and change. Where we got incredibly fortunate is that this new head of communications at ADB had a background in results management. So he immediately understood what we were trying to do and understood that we needed a new corporate communications strategy to support it. So we got to work on that, and this was a revelatory process because we began asking questions we'd never asked before. Simple questions, like why do we communicate? This is why. These are the needles we want to move, the actions we want audiences to take. I think if you remember back to slide 1, 1966, ADB was established. In all those 50-odd years, never asked that question. What did we want to communicate? We didn't want to be fragmented anymore. We wanted to be focused. We didn't want to talk about everything. We wanted to talk about some things, and we wanted to own that space. And who are our audiences? Ask any communicator at ADB 2 or 3 years ago why they were communicating, and they would have said, what was your objective? And they would have answered, awareness raising. Who was their target audience? General public. maybe your target audience if you're working in various industries here, but they're not ours. We have a very specific group of target indicators. In essence, we are a bank. We want to be appealing to finance ministries. We want them to take out our loans. We want them in those developing member countries to take on our solutions, development solutions. And behold, it's a thing of beauty. The CKRF. First time in our history where we've had a clear line between what communicators do and how it links to our organisational goals. I love the CKRF. Not as much as my wife, but damn close. But I also hate it because it exposed a fundamental flaw in our communications at the Asian Development Bank, our structure. It was designed for the 1870s. So we had teams organised by functions. You're in media, you're in the media team. You're in web, you're in the web team within these divisions. Blog, we had a blog team. And they were responsible for the full flow of communications. So they dealt with the client, they created the content, they disseminated it to their target audiences. So, misalignment, the law. Apart from that, over time we developed some weird things. In the front office you'll see measurement and evaluation sits in there. And that's because I sit in the front office as the advisor to a head of communications. So these weird things, social media's in there because I'm also managing that. So it's apart from where it needs to be, where all the strategic work, the content work, the dissemination work is happening. So we knew we had to change fast, and we did. So 3 years later, no, that's a joke. We're the public service, but we're not that slow, right? A year later, give or take, we came up with what we call a communications value chain. So everything in the department will come through the planning division. Every request in the bank, communications request, will come through the planning division. The planners will put it through a prioritisation framework. This request based upon our communication strategy, determine whether we want to do it or whether we have the resources to do it. Critically, in this planning division sits the measurement and evaluation function. Impacts and insights team, we're calling it, which is right there, upstream. Advising the planners, guiding the planners, basically telling the planners what to do, because we all know planners aren't that smart. No, they are. I'm a planner. Yumi's much smarter than me. Content production division, they're going to create all the content, so the plans are made, they execute on the content strategy. And then through to a dissemination division where everything is disseminated, and marketing sits in there as well. So this is what it was on the left. This is what it will be on the right. So you see all the various teams under the old structure communicating to audiences, often overlap. So you can imagine the resources we were spending trying to reach the same audiences. In this new structure, it'll be much more simple. But this is why we're here. And this is why my presentation is called Measurement in the Middle. Because the first time in our history, we are putting measurement at the centre of everything. It is the pivot point. It's not just something bolted onto the side of a communications plan. It is the centre of the communications planning. So a client comes along, as I was explaining earlier, they're prioritised based on a framework. The planning team, immediately, if we're going ahead, immediately they're bringing in the impacts and insights team, who are then guiding the planners. What kind of content are you creating? Who are the audiences? How are you most likely to reach them? What are the best channels? What's the best fit? All of these things, planning, measurement and evaluation, or impacts and insights, must work together. So that's upstream of the process. Then impact indicators are selected, the KPIs of the campaign. The content team produces the strategy, dissemination and marketing. And within that marketing, because they are the closest to our audience, they're collecting the indicators and then feeding them back to the impacts and insights team who will evaluate them. So mid-year communications plan is in play. We can move in real time. We can adjust it, we can refine it if it's not working. Or we feed the learnings back into the next plan. Change is difficult. I mean, that's the bottom line. I'm telling you a very happy story today, but the reality is that change is difficult. You know, any change is going to spark fear about ways we were doing things to the new ways. It requires resources, requires so much communication. So we have set up a transformation team to do this. I lead that transformation team. We've got about 12 people within these 3 teams. We've got working on new workflows because everything is changing. But the communicators particularly are important because they need to bring the staff along with them, because the risks to this approach is that we go back to the old ways. We need to upskill staff, so we need to have the resources for that. Key takeaways, I've repeated it over and over, and I would like to see more planners and strategists at AMIC summits in the future. I think that's fundamental. I don't think the two should have separate. I attend several strategic communications events, and I don't see M&E people there or agencies. I think there should be. I think there needs to be alignment. This goes without saying. We all know the value of measurement and evaluation. Like, we are a strategic asset. We are not a cost center. And finally, management is your friend, because change must be top down, not bottom up, when you're doing fundamental reform. That's essential. So I think sometimes, you know, in the space that we're in, we're not always the greatest communicators for the work we do, but we must be great communicators for the work we do. You must win management over you. If you've got a boss who doesn't quite understand the value of what we're doing, it is your job to ensure that he comes on board. I didn't need to do that because, as I said, our new boss already had a results management background. He was an easy sell. That's it. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrew. We are so delighted to be here in Bulgaria. We adapt. So we appreciate you embracing the local culture straight away and really bringing it to life for us on the stage. We have time for one question, and then Andrew is here for the remainder of the event and we'll be happy to spend time. Let's go to the lovely Emery Desidou here in the center section.
Andrew, hi.
Hi.
That was fantastic, very valuable. You shared some really good takeaways, I think, there for us for driving change in an organisation, and you're still in the process of that. Do you have a learning about something you would recommend if we want to do a similar thing, or we're guiding an organisation, something you wouldn't do and not do from your experience so far in this kind of change management piece?
We've taken, yes, 2 things that we've done. I think we moved, it sounds ridiculous because that call to Jose was 3 or 4 years ago, right, Jose? But we've moved too fast, right? I think we have. And we haven't moved at the speed to bring people along, enough people along with us, which is why we have to doing such intense internal communications now. So I'd redo that. The internal community, but we weren't, again, in my defence, we weren't resourced to do the internal comms back then, but that should have been done from the beginning. We should have been resourced for that. We are now. Second is, of course, when you're introducing something like this, you're coming up with a whole bunch of new data solutions as well. That is so complicated, that territory. Like, so, you know, I mean, it's incredibly complicated to get the right thing. It's very time-consuming and potentially incredibly expensive. And we've made a few missteps. I was speaking to someone earlier this week. They were advising me to, you know, we should have got a consultant in, and I didn't realise that at the time. Maybe I didn't know the right consultants to engage, but we should have. We should have got someone in to advise us on that, and we may be doing that moving forward. So they're the 2 key things. Yeah.
Wonderful. Another round of applause for Andrew, please. Thank you so much.
Thanks.